Our mission really is to pull out the most, impactful advice for hitting that big success.
Because we know listeners want knowledge that actually, moves the needle. Fast and deep.
Exactly. Forget the small steps. This video talks about, 9 key rules.
9 principles, yes. Specifically aimed at building, believe it or not, a 9-figure business. So we're going to distill those down.
Find the actionable stuff.
Find the real value for you listening.
And fair warning, Cody's style is pretty direct, no nonsense.
Very fast-paced.
So we'll try and keep that energy up. Expect some, aha moments, hopefully takeaways you can actually use, whatever scale you're at.
Right. Okay, let's jump in.
Let's do it. Rule number 1. Don't be afraid of outgrowing everyone.
Okay, so the core idea here is, well, it's that growth is essential, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes that means you're going to diverge from people around you.
Right. It's not about being mean or anything.
No, not at all. It's just recognizing people have different limits, different ambitions. Trying to stay tied to someone not keeping pace, it can actually hold both of you back.
Yeah, that makes sense. And she tells that story about her CEO at First Trust, Jim, where she built this huge Latin America business, like over $1 billion AUM.
Incredible.
And she wanted to grow even faster, acquisitions, the whole thing. But Jim basically said, your ambition needs a different boat. Pretty blunt.
Yeah. But look at the outcome.
All right. Yeah.
Her companies now manage, 4 times that?
4 times. So sometimes that decisive break, even if it feels rough, it's the catalyst you need. So the takeaway for you listening is that growth often means making tough calls about who's in your circle.
Professionally and personally sometimes.
Right. Holding back for others. It limits everyone in the end.
And there's that tension, isn't there, between loyalty and just pure forward momentum. It's a constant balance. And the anecdote really shows that sometimes the kindest thing is acknowledging, okay, we're on different tracks now.
Then she uses that splinter analogy.
Oh, yeah, for the underperforming employee.
That one person just draining all the energy.
Right. And she asks, how long have you known you needed to let them go?
And the advice is just rip off the Band-Aid.
Do it. Because the stat she mentions, nobody ever regrets firing an underperformer.
That's stark, isn't it?
It is, but it says a lot about the relief, the focus that comes back afterwards.
So recognize those energy drains, those underperformers, and just act. Don't get caught in that sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah, that I've already invested so much time trap. It's deadly for growth.
Okay, rule number 2. This one's punchy. The best revenge is spelled revenue.
Oh. Yeah. This is all about aiming high financially, what she calls being a scoreboard bitch.
Okay, explain that.
It just means focus on the financial results as the ultimate validation. Forget arguing with haters or trying to prove people wrong with words.
Let the scoreboard do the talking.
Exactly. Build the wealth. That's the measure.
And she brings in that framework. Triple, triple, double, double, double.
Right. That's SaaS speak, software as a service lingo.
For tech companies, usually.
Yeah, and it's basically a roadmap to hit a $1 billion valuation in 5 years. Once you've got product market fit.
Wow. So it lays out these huge growth jumps.
Exponential, like 2 million to 6 million, then 18 million.
Yeah.
It just keeps multiplying. It really shows the sheer scale of ambition we're talking about.
So even if you're not aiming for $1 billion, that framework shows the power of audacious goals.
And the mindset needed for that kind of exponential growth. Yeah. Not just incremental stuff.
Which naturally leads to haters.
Oh. Inevitably.
She links it to the average person getting maybe a 3-4% raise.
Right.
Compared to the hundreds of percent growth needed for that $1 billion target, the scales are just completely different.
Totally. And when someone's only known small linear steps, seeing exponential growth, it can seem impossible or even offensive.
Yeah, threatening.
That difference in perspective is often where the negativity comes from.
Then there's the they hate you because they ain't you curve. Which, probably feels familiar to some people.
Yeah. It starts with them calling you lame and maybe kind of crazy.
One-hit wonder.
Then it shifts, right, to rumors, maybe. Oh, yeah, she F'd that guy, didn't she? Then it's like, what the, her? Yeah, I know her.
Until eventually it's, hey, long time no talk.
Love to meet up.
They do it!
It's funny, but also pretty insightful about how perceptions change with success.
So for you listening, when you start getting wins, maybe small ones, expect some dismissal. Lame.
Then as it gets bigger, maybe crazy or lucky.
But if you sustain it, eventually it turns to curiosity, maybe even admiration, or trying to reconnect. Knowing that curve helps you navigate it.
Totally. It normalizes the skepticism, even the hostility.
Yeah.
Helps you stay focused.
And the whole money solves problems discussion is important here, too. That research about happiness.
Right, the threshold. It used to be, what, $75K?
Yeah, then updated to maybe $500. But Cody argues for the bank of I do whatever the feck I want.
Which is basically saying financial freedom gives you options. Agency.
Right. The research basically found emotional well-being does rise with income, but then it plateaus, right?
Yeah, but her point is more about the freedom money buys. Not just happiness, but the ability to make choices, exert influence, solve problems without being financially limited.
And she talks about a moral obligation with wealth.
Mm-hmm. Pushing back on overreach, funding education, adding that dimension.
Interesting point, too, that the real pushback isn't maybe gender-based, but against anyone seen as hoarding wealth.
Yeah, that adds some nuance. Shifts it away from identity politics towards, like, wealth distribution issues.
Okay, rule 3. The truth may set you free, but first, it'll make you miserable. This sounds like we need to look inwards.
Definitely. This one highlights a critical, often uncomfortable idea. Your biggest growth blocker might not be leads or sales.
What the heck?
It might be your product or your service, a fundamental flaw in what you're actually offering.
Oof.
Okay.
It's about taking that hard, honest look.
The leaky boat analogy she uses is great.
Spot on, yeah.
Oh.
Pouring marketing money into a business with a bad product is like bailing out that sinking boat with a sieve.
You're fixing the wrong thing.
Totally wrong problem. Instead, focus on the 3 R's.
Renewals, referrals, reviews.
Exactly. She says a healthy business should get like 20-30% of new customers from referrals. That's a huge sign your product is actually good.
So for you listening, how's your referral rate looking? Is it in that ballpark?
It's a good benchmark.
And that example of the company with thousands of leads, 10, 30,000 email leads a month.
Yeah, massive numbers.
But not enough sales. They thought it was a visibility problem.
But it was a product problem. The offer just wasn't compelling enough to convert.
And fixing the product, as she says, is often more sustainable long-term than just constantly chasing more and more leads.
Right, because your product is unique to you. Yeah. Refining that builds a real advantage.
I liked her mentor's advice, too. Treat your first client like your only client.
Aim for 5 referrals just from them. It shifts the whole focus from mass acquisition to, like, deep satisfaction and organic growth.
Super powerful. Building that solid base of happy customers first. It clearly worked for her. She mentions not needing online fundraising.
And the saying, a pound of pre-production is worth 10 pounds of post-production.
Yes. Applies directly to product development. Get it right, or mostly right, up front.
Don't just launch something flawed and try to iterate your way out of it constantly.
It's way harder, usually less successful, than getting the core offering solid from the start.
The Chamath Palihapitiya example from Facebook, the 7 friends in 10 days thing.
Brilliant illustration, finding that one key insight about user behavior.
That users who connected with 7 friends early were way more likely to stick around.
That drove massive growth. And even though he had later failures, it shows.
You just need one huge win.
One win so big, it basically erases all the fails. That's the idea. Find that lever.
Which leads to her question. What is the one secret to your business that you don't actually even realize is there?
Right, like Archimedes' lever. What's your business's leverage point? Beyond just grinding harder.
Makes you think. Okay, rule number 4. This one's direct. Your bank account is a reflection of how good you are. Ouch.
Yeah, it's tough. But the idea is simple. Financial results come from the value you create, the results you deliver. It cuts through entitlement.
That story about Bob expecting his $100 K bonus even though he missed his goal by 5%.
Perfectly shows that entitlement. And worse, one of her execs actually suggested giving it to him.
Wow. Shows how easily standards can slip.
And that creates this dangerous dynamic, right, where expectations get disconnected from results, reward falling short, and you basically normalize mediocrity.
Which leads to that principle. People will hold you to your highest level and they will sink to your lowest standard.
So critical. If you reward underperformance, boom, that's the new standard.
Leaders set the tone, what they uphold or fail to uphold.
It just permeates the whole organization.
And mentioning Walmart's tiny profit margin, like 6 cents on the dollar, really drives home how crucial hitting targets is. No room for error there.
Exactly. In competitive businesses, precision matters. Small misses can have big impacts.
Okay, rule 5. It was repeated, but presented as distinct. Assume your best competition works harder and is smarter than you.
This one's about humility, right? Fighting complacency.
Don't underestimate the other guy.
Assume they're better, assume they work harder, That should drive you to constantly improve your own game.
The stories of those billionaires, Joe Kraft, Alliance Coal, Jeffrey Kent, Abercrombie and Kent.
Amazing examples of work ethic. Kraft's routine, 5:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. for 48 years.
Insane! And Kent, 61 years with the same company. It's not about short bursts.
No way. It's sustained dedication, long-haul stuff, challenges that whole overnight success myth.
So the takeaway, what if time and consistency is the only ingredient you need?
Yeah, alongside what she calls an irrational work ethic.
Makes you really question, am I putting in that sustained effort? Truly.
It shifts focus from finding hacks or secrets to just consistent hard work over time. The irrational part highlights the level of dedication required.
And that note she keeps on her wall, you do not have what you want because you have not done what is necessary to get it.
So direct.
Yeah.
Cuts through excuses.
Take ownership. Do what's needed, not just what you feel like.
It's about accountability.
Yeah.
Are you really doing what it takes, even when it sucks?
Rule 6. Culture doesn't start from the top, it slides downhill from the middle. This flips conventional wisdom a bit.
Yeah, the idea is, okay, top leadership sets the vision, the values.
Sure.
But the day-to-day culture, that's shaped by your middle managers.
Because they're the ones employees actually interact with daily.
Exactly. Staff look to their direct supervisors for cues on behavior, expectations, not just the CEO they barely see.
Makes sense. As CEO, you're removed. Middle managers are on the ground, setting the example. Work ethics standards.
Right. If they aren't living the culture, diligence, commitment, whatever, it won't stick, no matter what the CEO says.
That anecdote about the employee leaving at 2:30 on Friday.
Perfect example. If the middle manager allows that, or does it themselves.
It signals the real expectation, regardless of talk about being obsessed.
Totally. It's the iceberg analogy she uses, hidden non-performance under the surface. If middle managers aren't holding the line,
a big chunk of the workforce might be coasting.
So the key is hiring middle managers who are as good as, or even better than you, people who actually embody that obsession, those high standards.
Because their behavior determines the culture for most people. Strong middle leadership is crucial.
Paramount for a high-performing company, absolutely.
Rule 7. If you can't find top talent, that means you are not top talent. Another mirror check moment.
Yeah, this flips the script. Stop blaming the talent pool.
There are no good people out there.
Right. Instead, it suggests high performers attract other high performers. If you're not attracting them, maybe the issue is you.
The lion and gazelle analogy.
Direct, yeah. Lions want to run with other lions, not gazelles. Top talent won't work for someone they see as less capable.
So your ability to attract and keep great people reflects your own competence.
And the standards you hold yourself to. Top talent wants challenge, inspiration from leaders and peers.
That question, am I good enough to attract and lead the lions? That's a tough one to ask yourself, honestly.
Forces you to assess your own skills, habits, leadership style. Are you someone a top performer would genuinely respect and follow?
Her personal example about, dressing more professionally.
Interesting, right? Maybe in pure finance it mattered less, but she realized standards were slipping overall.
So she consciously leveled up her own presentation. Pros pay pros. First impressions matter.
It signals your level of professionalism, the standards you expect, embody the success you want.
And those questions about your own habits. Are you punctual? Do you work weekends sometimes? Are you obsessed?
Drives it home. You can't expect dedication. You don't model yourself. That idea that, oh, I don't need my employees to be as dedicated as me. Well, maybe you do if you want the best.
Excellence attracts excellence.
Pretty much. And top talent, they're drawn to a dream big enough they can't achieve it alone.
You need that compelling vision.
Something that excites ambitious people, makes them want to join your mission.
That story about interviewing Bobby from SeatGeek. Making over $1 million a year already.
Eye-opening. He wasn't just being interviewed, he was interviewing her.
Asking tough questions about vision, partnerships, how she fires people, financials.
Shows the due diligence top talent does.
Yeah.
They're assessing you, the leader, the vision, the whole picture, not just the salary.
And she acknowledges that nurturing tendency, especially maybe in women leaders, and how having strong, decisive leaders around you helps make those tough calls.
Yeah. Building a well-rounded team, different strengths complement each other, ensures tough decisions get made for the org's long-term health.
Okay, rule 8. 2 more friends from business, not business from friends. Sounds like self-protection.
It is. Basically, be cautious mixing close friendships and business deals, especially if you start the relationship with an ask.
Build business connections based on professional interests first.
Right. because success makes you a target. That Donald analogy, probably Trump, right? Increased scrutiny, legal stuff.
Yeah, and her own story of being defrauded.
It's a reminder, unfortunately. Success brings visibility and sometimes challenges. Her framing it as a priced entry to winning.
A bit cynical, maybe.
But acknowledges it can be part of the journey. Need for vigilance, strategic networking.
So the core advice, don't lead with the business ask when you meet someone.
So important. Build rapport first. Genuine connection. Don't just immediately try to leverage them.
Prioritize trust, understanding before talking business. Starting transactionally can kill a potentially good long-term relationship.
Definitely. And her suggestion, partner with friends only when you're on a similar level of success.
Yeah, and maybe employ friends who are below your level, but give them profit sharing later.
It's a more structured way, potentially less risky for involving friends. Clearer boundaries, expectations. Protects the friendship too, hopefully.
All right, final rule number 9. Marry, is the biggest life hack of all. This is about your partner.
Huge one. Underscores the massive impact your life partner has. Choosing someone with a growth mindset. Huge advantage.
Her own experience, financial success jumped significantly after marrying someone super supportive.
Right. And he didn't bring, initial wealth himself. It wasn't about his money.
It was the support, having a partner aligned with your ambition.
That emotional, mental support creates an environment where you can grow, take calculated risks. It can be just as valuable, maybe more so than cash.
And that line, whoever you choose will also choose your bank account for you.
Wow.
Yeah, really frames it. Your partner's mindset, their values, their outlook. It inevitably influences your financial path. Deeply connected, personal and professional, a supportive partner can be a catalyst, a misaligned one, a huge obstacle.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then there's one final thought she tacked on. Hire people so hungry they look like they're going to bite you.
Brings it back to drive. Ambition in the team.
Her father's advice, you can't teach hunger.
So true. That intrinsic motivation, it's rare. It's invaluable.
Emphasizing that relentless, almost palpable hunger as the #1 hiring factor, it fits the whole theme.
Right. Talent is great, but without that drive, that tenacity, they won't go the distance.
So a team full of people with that intense hunger, that determination.
Much more likely to overcome the hurdles and hit those big goals.
And this concept she calls profit as protest.
Right. That's a core message, isn't it? That real influence, real power, it comes from owning things, not just saving pennies or protesting without an economic base.
Yeah, she sets up this builder versus burner idea.
Builders create value, businesses. Burners may be more focused on critique.
Pretty much. And she uses Occupy Wall Street as an example.
Okay. To show the limitations, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It got attention, sure, but did it fundamentally change the system? Her argument is that protest without that economic clout often fizzles out.
Because the power structure remains kind of untouched financially. It's a provocative thought.
It is. And it leads her to flip that buy local slogan. She says we should think own local.
Ooh, I like that. Subtle shift. Big difference.
Right. Moves you from just being a consumer to actually having a stake, having ownership in your community's economy.
Yeah, active participation through assets, not just spending.
Yeah.
It definitely makes you think differently about your local impact.
Okay, so ownership is key. Now, she touches on how people actually get rich. She references a Credit Suisse study about the 5 main ways.
Yeah, the 5 ways to get rich. It puts things in context. So what are they again?
Inheritance, marriage, getting a top job at a huge company like a Fortune 500.
Asset management, like running a fund.
And number 5, the one she focuses on, building your own company.
And she flags that one because, it's potentially more accessible, right? Yeah. Fewer gatekeepers than, say, inheriting millions or climbing the corporate ladder to the very top.
Exactly. And it fits her whole builder philosophy. She talks about her own experience, starting and investing in businesses, seeing the patterns.
Right. She's seen what works. And she kind of challenges conventional wisdom a bit here, too, doesn't she? About saving.
Yeah, the earn versus save thing. She questions if just diligently saving is really the main engine for, big wealth.
Right. Not that saving isn't important, obviously, but she argues the real leverage comes from your ability to earn, to generate income, especially by creating something.
Makes you think, doesn't it? Where's your own focus? Earning or saving? Or the balance between them?
Definitely a good question for the learner to ponder.
Okay, so we know why building is important to her. Now, the how. She dives into the startup phase, that 0 to, say, $1 million journey.
And this is where she introduces the 3 Ps.
The 3 Ps: persona, product problem, and promotion. Let's unpack persona first. She calls it writing love letters.
Which is a great way to put it. It's about really knowing your ideal customer, not just, to whom it may concern.
No, getting specific, creating an avatar, a persona, giving them a name, visualizing them.
Like her Working John, Working Jane example.
Right, and figuring out, what do they read, what shows do they watch, where do they hang out online, what's their day like?
It's about deep empathy, basically, making them feel like you get them. She even says steal homework from media companies.
Yeah, like My First Million, Tim Ferriss. See how they connect with their audience.
And it ties into positioning, too. Don't be the hero.
Be the guide. Help the customer be the hero.
Yeah, and that shift, she argues, directly impacts cash flow. When customers feel seen and empowered, they buy.
So how well do you know your ideal customer, learner? Are you their guide? Good questions.
Okay, second P, product problem.
Okay.
Or, as she puts it, selling painkillers, not vitamins.
That one really sticks.
It does. Focus on urgent needs, the stuff people have to solve now, not just the nice-to-haves. Especially, she says, in the current economy.
Yeah, with high interest rates, uncertainty. People are pulling back on the vitamins. They need painkillers.
Which leads her to critique some service businesses, doctors, coaches, agencies where you're just trading time for money.
It's hard to scale that.
Right. So the alternative, a productized service.
Exactly. Turning your expertise into something repeatable, scalable, more valuable than just your hours. She contrasts, like a bad agency versus a good one.
Okay, so the bad one tries to do everything. No set processes, does custom quotes all the time, gets paid late.
Yeah, negative cash flow, RFPs for everything. Sounds painful.
Definitely. And the good one, built-in recurring revenue, like monthly fees, easy for customers, like click, click, buy, set processes, no crazy customization, knows exactly who their client is, and it's sellable.
Ah, recurring revenue. That's the golden ticket, she implies, the path to retirement for the owner.
Totally. And she breaks down different types. She lists 6, but focuses on 5 practical ones.
Like long-term contracts, auto renewals, subscriptions.
Pay-as-you-go services, loyalty program. She uses the airline example, where the loyalty program is often worth more than the airline itself.
Wow. And simple consumables like Keurig pods. You buy the machine, you keep buying the pods.
It creates this virtuous cycle. Build it once, sell it over and over. The car wash subscription is another example she uses.
Makes sense. So, learner, where could you build in more recurring revenue?
Okay, third P, promotion. And her angle here is interesting. Focus on selling more to your current clients and getting referrals.
Right. She says that's the easiest dollar to make, which sounds obvious, but maybe we don't focus on it enough.
Probably not. She gives reasons why it's easier. Confirmation bias, they already trust you, you have their data.
Recency bias, too.
Right. And she suggests practical things. Upsell, cross-sell, affiliates, add subscriptions, get them on annual plans instead of monthly.
And have a solid sales process, not just relying on one thing. One is none, she says.
Good point. Then referrals. Huge potential, often underutilized.
Yeah. And she connects this to reviews. This stat was wild. Only 12% of people leave reviews.
But 93% read them before buying.
Crazy imbalance, which means negative reviews hurt a lot.
Yeah, it takes tons of positive ones to balance out one negative. So you need to actively ask for reviews. She says it boosts revenue, reduces business pain. She even has a video on how to do it.
So learner, are you actively asking for referrals and reviews? Could be a leverage point.
Okay, so those are the 3 Ps for getting to $1 million. But they don't just disappear after that, right? That's insight 4.
No, absolutely not. She stresses that even bigger businesses, scaling beyond that first million, they have to keep reinforcing those fundamentals. Persona, product, promotion, or things get shaky.
It's about avoiding volatility.
Yeah.
And she pushes for that mindset shift again. Instead of, why won't this work for me?
Ask, how could this work for me? Opens things up.
Yeah. And she points out that private equity, the big money folks, they obsess over these same 3 Ps when they invest. It's foundational.
So learn from their homework, basically.
Pretty much.
Okay. This leads to a really interesting strategic angle. Key insight 5. The power of buying businesses. She calls it asymmetric acquisition.
Yeah, this is a big one for her. The idea that it's often easier or maybe faster to buy existing profits than to build them all the way from scratch.
And she connects it to the current landscape. Tons of startups launching.
But many struggling to actually get profitable and scale. Supply and demand issues.
So acquiring an existing profitable business can be a shortcut, a way to bypass some of that early struggle.
That's the idea. Moving from what she calls linear earning, building step by step, to asymmetric buying. Her big goal, she says, is like 100,000 small business owners finding success through buying.
Wow. That's ambitious. She tells that story about Mr. Yokohama in Japan.
Oh yeah, the multi-generational business. Profitable, but no one in the family wants it, so it might sell for basically nothing.
Exactly. And that's apparently a wider trend. Aging owners, no succession plan, creates opportunities.
But also a risk, right?
Yeah.
She mentions big corporations consolidating markets.
Yeah, squeezing out smaller players in food, housing, whatever. So we need more builders, but also more savvy buyers to keep the ecosystem diverse.
Okay, so if buying sounds interesting,
Yeah.
how do you actually find a business to buy? That's the next piece, Insight 6.
Right, and first she busts the myth that there's some big central list, like the MLS for houses. It's not really like that.
So where do you look?
Start with your network, your vendors, maybe even competitors, people you already know or interact with.
Makes sense. She also mentioned the core satellite idea.
Yeah, look at your main business, the core, and then businesses in related or complementary areas, the satellites.
And she does this closed eyes
Yeah.
exercise, suggesting that way more owners might sell than you think if the price, and crucially, the terms are right.
Terms over price, that's a key point. She mentions her company BizScout as a resource too, but that terms thing is critical. She gave that example of a $1 billion offer.
Paid out at $1 a day. Yeah, illustrates the point perfectly. Price isn't everything. How is the deal structured?
Exactly. How do you de-risk it? She talks about milestones, earnouts,
Where payment depends on future performance.
tranche-based investing, paying in stages, ways to protect yourself as the buyer.
Because you're always at an information disadvantage compared to the seller, right? They know the business inside out. You don't.
Precisely. So due diligence and smart deal terms are non-negotiable.
Okay, wow. Lots to unpack there.
Definitely. So, learner, let's try and wrap this up, this deep dive into Cody Sanchez. What are the big takeaways? Ownership is power, building is accessible.
Master those 3 Ps. Persona, product, promotion, no matter your business size.
And don't overlook buying a business. That asymmetric acquisition idea could be a powerful strategy.
Yeah, they all kind of connect. Know your customer, solve their problem, tell them about it effectively, and then look for smart ways to grow, building or buying.
So here's a final thought to mull over. Looking at your own work, your own business or ideas, which of those 3 Ps feels like the weakest link right now? Where's the biggest room for improvement?
Or, thinking about buying, what kinds of businesses operate in your sphere, your network, that just might be potential acquisition targets if you started looking?
Good questions. And if you want to dig deeper, check out productized services, different recurring revenue models, business acquisition resources.
Sanchez's YouTube channel, BizScout, were mentioned as starting points. But really, the key question is, what stood out most to you, learner? What new questions popped into your head from this discussion?
Because that's usually where the real learning happens next.